Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Let's go and check out 8 WCW wrestlers who ended their opponent's career in the ring.
WCW wrestlers who ended a wrestler's career in the ring. Finley. Now, it's extremely rare for a wrestler to have just one match in a respective promotion before calling it a day. However, for a wrestler known as Lorenzo, a single match against Finley was more than enough. The match in question occurred on an episode of WCW Saturday Night in 1998, and whilst it could be argued that Finley was stiff with Lorenzo, Finley was simply wrestling the same way he did against anyone else on the roster. It was said that Lorenzo tried to control the match, but with Finley being the wise veteran, this simply wasn't going to happen. Whenever Finley would have any physical contact with Lorenzo, it was evident that he was uncomfortable and he simply didn't want to be there. When the match was over, Lorenzo grabbed his bags from the locker room and proceeded to leave the arena while still wearing his trunks. In fact, he never wrestled ever again. Ultimately, this didn't impact the legacy of Finley, as it was like he wasn't going out of his way to injure or hurt his opponent. Still, it had a lasting impression on Lorenzo.
Yeah, I guess so.
When it comes to the in-ring career
I
of
would
Rick
be
Rude
scared.
coming to an end, the majority...
Like, genuinely, if I was a wrestler who caused another wrestler to give up on his dreams, I would be terrified because I would feel like they would hate me and they might even do something to end my career as well. You know, like, I would always look behind.
Majority of wrestlers and fans have never directed the blame towards his opponent Sting, and for very good reason. Rude's retirement came at the most unfortunate time for him, as when Rude pinned the icon Sting to win the WCW International World title in 1994, it would end up being his second to last match. During the match, Rude hurt his back, and we've seen time and time again over the years that back injuries are often cause of significant long-term problems and even retirements. The back injury occurred when Rude received a dive at ringside and he landed awkwardly on the corner of a raised platform. The injury caused such a problem for Rude that he had no choice but to retire. This was a major blow for the world of pro wrestling, as the immensely talented star was just 35 years old and had years left before he...
That's him at 35? That's crazy. He looks so much older.
...called it a day in the ring. Steve Austin. During his time in WCW, Steve Austin received the opportunity to work with the legendary Ricky Steamboat. Whilst their matches were well received, one match at Clash of Champions 28 led to Steamboat's WCW career coming to an abrupt end. The injury occurred when Steamboat took a bump off the ropes, and instead of taking a flat back bump, Steamboat took the bump on his tailbone. It was evident that Steamboat was in agony, and his facial expressions were clearly going beyond tradition.
It's so weird because, like, if you look at it from a fan, like from someone in the audience sitting down, it doesn't look that bad. And the worst part about it, these moments where it doesn't look that bad, people get injured the most. But when they do, like, the craziest type of shiz, it's like, fine, they're completely fine the next day. Like, make it make sense.
Selling. Steamboat would be forced to give up his WCW US title, and infamously, while still injured, Steamboat was fired by WCW President Eric Bischoff via FedEx. The British Bulldog. It's often been said that the Bulldog that returned to WWE in 1999 wasn't the same wrestler, and this was predominantly down to a career-altering injury that he suffered during his time in WCW. Now, the injury itself would occur at the Fall Brawl pay-per-view in 1998, and the injury wasn't the fault of Bulldog or any of the names in the match. Bulldog would team with Jim Neidhart against the Dancing Fools, and whilst taking bumps in the match, Bulldog landed twice on a trapdoor which had been set up underneath
but he's
the
landing
ring
on the side, which kind of is better than landing directly on the back.
To make a special entrance during the main event, and these bumps had dire consequences for the former European champion, as it resulted in Bulldog developing a spinal infection that nearly paralyzed him. The injury was so severe that Bulldog was forced to spend half a year in hospital, and in typical WCW fashion, whilst Bulldog was recovering, WCW would decide that now was the appropriate time to fire him. Vader had a reputation for being very stiff in the ring, yet the stiffness didn't often equate to him being dangerous in the squared circles. However, when Vader wrestled Joe Thurman in WCW, things went badly wrong, and Thurman would have his life changed forever. That match in question took place in 1992, and the incident occurred during a handicap match featuring the two aforementioned names. During the match, Vader was on the offense, and during a choke slam spot, Thurman landed hard on the back of his neck and head, and to make things worse, Thurman then received a devastating looking powerbomb. Vader would then break character and ask Thurman if he needed to stop the match. WCW's medical team would attend to Thurman, and the diagnosis was that Thurman hadn't just broken his back, he was partially paralyzed from the waist down. According to Mick Foley, Vader was incredibly emotional and he proceeded to follow the ambulance to the hospital to check on Thurman's well-being. Sid.
I
if a
mean, let's be honest, he really was savage there. Like, so hard, and the way he hit him, like, from the upper part, that it goes directly on his neck. That wasn't safe at all.
wrestler is uncomfortable delivering a move, then they shouldn't be forced to perform that move in question. The
Exactly.
WCW found this out the hard way in 2001 when one of their top stars, Sid, was horribly injured during the match in the main event of the Sin pay-per-view. Sid would hit a jumping big boot from the middle rope, but when he landed, all his weight came down on his foot. This resulted in one of the most traumatizing injuries ever seen on a wrestling pay-per-view. Hell, even on a wrestling show. Sid's legs snapped underneath him and he broke both his tibia and fibula.
Oh my god,
the
thank you for not
controversial
showing
WCW
it.
management team wanted Sid to expand his moveset, and they wanted him to now include a move from the middle or top rope. The former world champion himself admitted he felt incredibly uncomfortable doing anything from the ropes. Sid even noted that he didn't even want to do a double axe handle, which goes to show just how uncomfortable Sid was with the idea.
But yeah, but let's be honest, like a wrestler who cannot implement the ropes as a part of his wrestling career, like, I'm sorry, but how does that even work?
Rare W from Eric Bischoff, he decided against showing a replay of the injury on Nitro, and Bischoff reflected on his call on his podcast. You want to be real, whenever a wrestler gets busted open or hurt in the ring, there's always a need to show the post-injury surgery or the severity of the wound, or show themselves get stitched up. I guess that's an effort to prove what they do in the ring is physical, and it's dangerous and real. I guess it's a good thing and necessary thing to just remind people that we're not out here pillow fighting. This is real stuff, and real injuries do happen. There's a certain point where you have to draw the line of good taste. With this, it was a tough call. It really was. The infamous match at Sin was his final ever WCW matchup. Stevie Ray. 1998
Sometimes
was a horrible year for Rick Martel. First in a match at Super Bowl, he would injure his knee in a featured match against Booker T. This was caused by a botched hip toss, a move that is traditionally hard to botch. But then after 5 months on the injured list, Martel would suffer a neck injury against Stevie Ray, and this would ultimately force the underrated star to call it a day in the ring. Martel would injure his neck when taking a slapjack move, and when Martel lands, it's horrible to watch, as he looked like he's completely out of it. This might have been the first instance where a wrestler was injured by a tag team in 2 separate matches. And of course, Goldberg. Injuries and accidents can happen at any time in a wrestling match.
Goldberg is coming back, isn't he? He's not
by Goldberg at the
finished.
1999 Starrcade pay-per-view, it resulted in his iconic career coming to an end. The 1999 Starrcade event was headlined by Hart defending his world title against Goldberg, and this match is known for the aforementioned kick. At the time, this was seen as a huge match for WCW, and it was seen by many as a make-or-break matchup, as the WCW product was on a downward trajectory, and they needed the match to be a success. Unfortunately, the injury and the bizarre finish did more damage to the status of WCW, and it's a match that fans as well as Hart himself wish never took place. In his acclaimed autobiography, Hitman, My Real Life in a Cartoon World of Wrestling, Hart discussed the incident in the matchup. I fired Goldberg into the ropes, and as he reversed me, I heard him called, "Watch the kick." I had no idea what kind of kick he meant, and there wasn't much room coming off the ropes. Goldberg's right foot flew just under my right hand. Wham! It felt like someone shot me with a hockey stick. It was an agonizing blow that sent me crashing to the mat, where I lay holding my neck just behind my right ear at the base of my skull. The botched mule kick gave Hart a severe concussion, and due to this being 1999, Hart continued to wrestle, which made things even worse. The WWE Hall of Famer would later be diagnosed with post-concussion syndrome, and his in-ring career was cut dramatically short. Hart continues to hold a ton of resentment towards Goldberg, and the two are unlikely to ever reconcile. A lot of this resentment has definitely hindered Goldberg's relationship with the fans, particularly fans of Hart, as if it wasn't for that one specific kick, Hart would have been active and healthy way into the early 2000s. But there you have it, folks. WCW wrestlers who ended a
I mean, I'm so sorry for Hart. He had like the worst time ever. Like, he's such a good wrestler, but over and over again, he just got screwed. And I like seeing him today. It's like a shell of his old self. I feel like the guy's so depressed and sad, but he's trying to do the best he could, especially after losing his brother too to the industry. So I don't know. If there is a person that is still with us today that had it really hard, I feel like he would be one of those. Of course, there are so many other wrestlers who has been injured, paralyzed, and severely in pain today because of wrestling. Like, it is not for everybody, and it is such a hard sport. Like, something can happen that would end your career and literally make you in pain for the rest of your life. And all of that for performing and for our enjoyment. So I hope we do appreciate what we see. And I'm so happy that today pro wrestling is more safe, or way safer than it was back then, and that people don't get like really pushed forward in order to, like, with the performance and the wowsy moments and stuff like that, in order to like make us entertained. I think what they are doing today is good enough, and I hope they don't feel the necessity to make it hardcore ever again, because I really don't like seeing my favorite wrestlers getting really injured. I like when it is work, when they're pretending, when they're bleeding a bit because they cut themselves in order to bring the drama into it, but nothing like really serious. And these concussion things, I hope they are behind us after they like banned all of these moves that go directly to the head. But yeah, that is it. Thanks so much for watching, and see you guys in the next video, or see you on my Patreon if you're interested in more WWE reactions. Bye.